Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. It's been a while, hasn't it? Great to see you and great to have the VCO Esports studio back up and running. I think it's been about 6 months and so much has happened in the last 6 months. It's going to be quite tricky for us to catch up. From my side, I've had a baby, I've moved house, and so that took a bit of time to get the studio back up and running. And in the world of sim racing, so much has happened, including our VCO Esports Racing League, and so many other races, so many other Grand Slams and special events. But there's one thing that's really I've taken a lot of notice on, and that is the rise of tonight's special guest and the team in which he founded and runs. This evening, we are joined by Alex Simpson of Apex Racing Team. Great to have you with us, Alex. Thank you very much for joining us. And before we talk a lot, I want to first show you a little VT about Apex Racing's successes. The Esports Racing League and all of its various counterparts have been absolutely dominated so far by Team Redline. But that all changed thanks to this man, this team, and that event. Alex, great to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us on our brand new live version of VCO Studio. Firstly, let's talk about that success and how important that particular success has been to you.
Yeah, hello Ben. Good to be here. No pressure. First one back live for me. Thank you. I got to correct you straight away. You said, it's somewhat to do with me, and really, it wasn't. It's the drivers. They were the ones that have put all the hard work in over this past sort of 12, 18 months, and been knocking on the door of the top teams and trying to basically knock them off their pedestal. There's a few teams out there that we look up to in terms of trying to be as competitive, always have done since the very creation of Apex back in 2012. Redline were there back in the day, and Panda were there as My 3ID back in the day. Those were the teams that we looked up to and wanted to aspire to beat, essentially. And it's great that it's taken 10 years, but we're here there now, and I think it's pretty clear to see that we're going to keep pushing and try and take those top steps to the most we can.
Is it something that you've recognized within the organization that everything has stepped up to a point where you are able to fight with Redline? Is it obvious to you from the behaviour of your drivers, from the way that you have kind of formulated the team and the way that you've pushed your facilities and the way that you look after the team?
Well, I think there was a bit of an ethos change maybe back in 2018. We're all at the Sim Racing Expo. We had a big plan to basically see how we could push the team on into a new direction. Specifically for the drivers, it was all about becoming full-time professional sim racers. How is it possible? What do we need to achieve to do that? And that's really where we kind of changed our mindset, and we were like, right, it's no longer are we playing a game. We wanted to take this as seriously as we absolutely could. And I think that's kind of what's made the difference, is this just big shift in our sort of mindset. Everything we do now is, I don't want to say it's micromanaged, but everything is kind of looked at and reviewed, debriefed. How can we improve? What mistakes did we make? Even on like the Daytona race, for example, where we won this year's 24-hour race, there was a big long review. We picked up a load of points that we can improve on, because if those mistakes are still there, then there's the chance that we might not win the next one. So this constant evolution in kind of our mindset and how what you need to do to beat these teams. They are so good. I don't mind sort of admitting it. They are absolutely the fiercest competition we've got out there, and we have to absolutely bring our A game to do it. So I think that's what's made the big difference, is the drivers really this willingness now to change. Right, they know that they're doing it full time now, and they want to win and they want to shine on the world stage, kind of thing. So it's it's crazy how it's changed, and it really was from that 2018 date. This just evolution for us.
And this is obviously pre the pandemic, when so many things in the world of sim racing took a next level and a step up. You were already in that process. As far as I understand, you're actually sitting in Apex Racing's office right now, aren't you? You have a facility which so many teams don't.
Yeah. So I mean, I will. Yes. So we started to talk about it before COVID. This was certainly not on the plans before COVID, I have to say. You know, we have been somewhat fortunate with what has happened in terms of how sim racing has expanded over that period of time, and we got to thank a lot of the real sort of motorsport manufacturers, a lot of the real life drivers for getting involved and pushing our sport massively forward. We wouldn't be where we are now. I think when we had visions of doing this originally, it was perhaps something similar to Coanda's sort of team's house that they kind of had, but yeah, as it was with restrictions with COVID and how many people can be in close proximity and some UK legislations, we basically had to go the commercial route, which is why we've got essentially two office blocks right next door to each other. And so one has been converted for the drivers, which is their apartments that they live in. So we've got two-bed
Well,
apartments, and underneath that we've kind of got like storage spares, and there are some overnight rooms for sort of boot camp guests that can stay for like the weekend and get coaching from the guys as well, or just other teammates that might be traveling over from like France or Spain. They can come and stay as well. And then we have our sort of our office administration area in the other building, where we have some support guys, our studio, and then downstairs it's kind of like our competition zone where we have sort of 12 simulators all set out, some for customers, and then we've got our little ART room, which is kind of dedicated to the pro guys. Yeah, so I really didn't think that we were going to go that crazy with it to start off with, and I have to thank our sponsor as well, and team partner, which is Virtual Racing School. So they really have kind of helped us to make that happen. Without those guys, it wouldn't have been possible for sure.
So many of the sim racing teams, kind of taught the real world to work online, and obviously during the pandemic we saw all productions and all offices being separated, and so many of the offices around the world, whether we're talking banking, insurance, or sport or whatever, they stayed away. They haven't gone back to the office environment, whereas you have developed an office environment for something that can, if it needs to, operate in a completely online level. What makes the office environment important to you, and do you think it adds a layer of performance to what you do?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, you're right. It's completely odd. It's completely backwards. I mean, the estate where we are, the car parks are still empty. Hardly anybody has come back. We're mostly the only ones here now, even though restrictions are pretty much fully lifted. So it's very odd for sure. In terms of what it gives us is initially, like, it's instantaneous communication makes a difference. I mean, and yes, I know we have platforms like Discord and TeamSpeak and forums that you can talk and discuss on, but actually doing your test session with your teammate and just being able to turn your head and have a little conversation, talk setups, like say the debriefings before, strategy calls that can all be planned beforehand. It just makes such a difference to have that sort of in-person communication going on. You throw on top of that the actual atmosphere that it creates. It's, you know, as great as an atmosphere again can be on your like your Discord and things like that. There is nothing quite like when you are all competing in the same venue. Everything's kind of going to plan, and you G everybody else up, and form is a huge thing in racing. And when the team's doing well, it kind of drags everybody up. Of course, it can have the negative effect that if we're not doing well and the results aren't going right, it can pull them down. And that's where we, sort of myself and like Lee Thompson and some of the other support guys, we kind of G the guys up to kind of look at what they can do. But yeah, the most important thing is that kind of really quick communication that goes on. There's just nothing like it that you can do when you're dealing with people remotely. And to some extent, like we've got a few drivers that are still remotely. Like I'm desperately trying to get Johan over to the UK so he can be part of it. There's a whole can of worms that I could go into with that, but I won't. And that would massively help him as well. We do a lot of sort of mental training together as well. There's the gym that we've kind of got here as well. All the guys can work out. So we're just trying to find as many little areas for small micro improvements in their performance that you just can't do and you can't manage remotely that you can when everybody's together.
All the things you're talking about, all the things that you are telling us, and the people involved, it all costs money. Are you now finding that there is a support within the industry to be able to fund teams like yourself, or are you really kind of still waiting for that moment to come and investing for the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one to say. Certainly, there are teams out there that have got really amazing backing, and they've developed the right connections and things like that, and they're able to sustain themselves using that model. I have always been a little bit cautious of going down that route, only because your business lives and breathes on your essentially your partnerships, and if they go, then everything goes with it. And I would hate to have to strip all this down just because we lost a critical partner. And so we have very much tried to look at sim racing community as a whole in kind of all the different areas. So that's why we have like the academy service, where we try and help people to improve their own driving, provide services that are good value for money in terms of setup packs and sort of group coaching sessions, things like that. SDK Gaming, obviously giving those sort of streamers and broadcasting a nice little software platform, as well as the HUD that a lot of people actually use. It was it surprised me how many people just use the HUD for the extra information. And we have like our own leagues that we put out there, our own broadcasting service. So all these sort of bolt-on services that we put for the business, that's what pays the bills, essentially. And we've got to thank every one of the people who enjoy our services and use them as well, because without them we wouldn't be doing any of this right now. So it's all down to their support, which we're all very grateful for.
I think even I've raced in one of the championships that you broadcast a few years back, and paid some money to do so.
Well, thank you.
Exactly. Let's talk about platforms, because one of the big things that I still love and bang on about is the idea that a sim racer is a sim racer, not an iRacing sim racer or a race room sim racer or an rFactor 2 specialist. If you are a great sim racer, then you should be a great sim racer across platforms, and that's a very hard thing to be, but that's what the EWC and ERLs are trying to encourage. Is that something that's very important to you, to make sure your team is multifaceted across different platforms, or are you happy to try and specialize in one or two?
No, absolutely. We want to branch out. I mean, we obviously enjoy iRacing. It's our bread and butter. It's what we all essentially, it's what the team grew up on, competing in absolutely every competition that we could do. it's why we seem to excel in these kind of multi-platform championships. But absolutely, really this year has been the kind of like, right, we absolutely must branch out into things like R Factor, ACC. Obviously, the new Rensport that's coming out is very exciting for us because it's a level playing field for everybody on that. So we're trying to be as involved in that as we possibly can. But yeah, and that's again not from a purely competition side as well. That is the business as a whole. So, we want to start to look at pushing out, value-added services to R Factor users where we can, and ACC and Rensport as well, and not to exclude any others that I may have missed in there, because there's so many, Automobilista, Race Room, whenever a competition comes up, we definitely want to start to take a look at it and take it seriously. So hopefully watch this space for the development of our wider team getting involved in these cross-platform championships.
How hard is it though to tell a certain team driver to right, we need you to try ACC because we want to be in the SRO Esports arena because we know that there are manufacturers there, when they are ultimately just a fan of iRacing that have ended up being a professional iRacer? Is there a little bit of arm twisting, and do you have to try certain different drivers to see which one fits to the certain different platforms?
I have to drag them kicking and streaming, Ben. No, to be fair, they're pretty good. There are some that just don't click with certain platforms, and it's in our interest as a team to obviously put the best team out there that we can. So, we definitely give everybody an opportunity to have a test, see how it goes. And, we'll pick the, 5 or 6 best drivers to put their name forward to whichever competition we're going. So, some drivers are very much like, I really just want iRacing. Or they may be like iRacing and R Factor, or iRacing and ACC. And I think it's important that we don't sort of just push everybody into doing everything as well, because you also get lost in what you're trying to achieve on your sort of, your day-to-day competition. So especially when for us, like at the start of the year, it's very iRacing focus with, we have the Porsche Takura Esports Super Cup, as well as the Porsche GB Carrera Cup, and BMW Sim Cup, all going on at that. There's a lot of special events, Daytona, Sebring, Watkins. So we are, we kind of leave our absolute sort of iRacers to kind of do the thing, and then we drag a couple of people out just to do some of these other events. It also gives us an opportunity for us to bring like our academy drivers into our ART team, to give them a run out as well and kind of get them used to the different platforms. So it's a balancing act for sure, but one that I feel like we're doing a better job now, and we're starting to see more drivers pick up another sim.
Okay, and that's very, very interesting to hear. Certainly from my point of view, I would want to see the very best be the very best across everything. So, we've talked about iRacing quite heavily. We've talked about the special events that you've been so successful in. But do you see that those special events need the backing of the likes of VCO to actually make them, these days, make them more credible, make them valuable to a team like yourself to win? Because yes, there's one thing winning a special event and it's great kudos, but actually only since VCO came in did they even award trophies. So should there be more coming from these platforms to try and support teams like yourself entering these special events, or is it enough that they're just still special events, iRacing run them, and the best win them?
Yeah. It's an interesting one. I think if you ask the drivers, if a driver had the opportunity to do a special event with some prize pool in there as well, I think they'd want to choose the prize pool one. But that's not to take away anything in terms of the special events as well, because like you say, it's the street cred, it's the rep, isn't it, for when you can win one of those. Like we, I tell you, the biggest celebration of a win we have done was the Daytona 24. You know, we were out in the car park, we were spraying the fake champagne and everything else like that. You know, we've won other events, prize pool paying and things like that. And, you know, yes, we've been happy and things like that, but we haven't kind of celebrated that. So I don't know. There is just something about the special events. It doesn't need all that extra kind of oomph to get the teams into it. You know, it's such a big thing to win one of those. Yeah, and you know, to some extent, I hope there isn't this kind of gravitation to try and pull people out of those official series special events to do something alongside it, just to kind of get, you know, like quote unquote, like, oh, this is an esports special event or something like that. So sometimes it's good that we just go out there and race for the street cred, you
know. One last sort of deep question for you as a team owner. The Red Line have always been very celebrated with their driver lineups that are with so many real world drivers that can pop in and out of any event. And obviously the VCO Pro Sim event partnered real world drivers with sim racing counterparts and giving the idea and using those real world drivers to try and add promotional value. Is there a target for you? Is there a desire to have more real world drivers within your team, maybe for the likes of ProSim, or just simply for the marketing purposes? Does it help you bring in sponsors as well?
It's a tricky one, to be honest. I mean, there's a couple of different levels to that as well, I think. So yes, obviously we do need have in some competitions some, you know, IRL associations so that we can compete. And like you say, the VCO Pro series. I guess the whole team, we don't want an IRL driver to be just in there because they are an IRL driver. So if you're a member of ART, it's because you have a vested interest in the sport that we are doing. We want to compete at the highest level in sim racing, and you need to be active to be doing that as well, you know, not just kind of once a year or something like that. So it is really important that those IRL drivers we do sim race regularly. Now, obviously, Redline absolutely have that blend extremely well. You know, they've got a lot of active guys that do real world racing and are very quick in the sim and jump in frequently enough that they're kind of active, you know. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. And I think one of the good things that we're doing with the academy right now is that we have a few sort of IRL guys in the mix there that we're trying to develop them in terms of the sim, be active on the sim, and build them from sort of the ground up, you know, as they're coming through the junior formulas and maybe into, you know, let's hope, you know, Formula One or something like that. It'd be lovely to sort of get them in there from, you know, early days and build some sort of team loyalty with it as well. So yeah, it is tricky. We don't just want anyone just to come in, just kind of represent and just put the, you know, do the odd social media tweet or something like that. We want them to be an actual integrated part of the team and want to sort of, you know, share in our success.
Great answer. Well, we're coming up to the end of our chat. It seems to have gone very, very quickly. Just quickly give us an idea of where we're moving with ART and what are your ambitions for the future? Where do you want to see the team?
Yeah, so I mean, we want to obviously be competing as we're competing now across all platforms. That's the key thing. So in terms of the team, you know, I'd love to see the kind of, I mean, I don't want to be, how do I say this? I don't want to be too big-headed with it as well, but you know, I would picture us in top 5 teams in iRacing on any day. You know, maybe even a little bit higher on some cars and some series. And I would like us to be in that same group across all the platforms, especially your R Factor and your ACC. so that, you know, the things like ERWC, we absolutely are, you know, one of the favorites and things like that. So there's a huge push to try and get that from the team front. And then on everything else that we're kind of doing, there's going to be this gentle push to try and branch out into all the other platforms as well, just to grow our business, and to be able to support, you know, additional people in the industry. I mean, you know, it's a huge success story for me that, you know, I've got some full-time sim racing administration sort of staff as well. You know, that's it. They're employed full-time to work in sim racing. You know, they do social medias, they're league admins, they do all sorts of things. You know, who would have thought there would have been such a position a few years ago? So more of that, more opportunities for people like that to kind of come and develop, and trying to imitate somewhat like your League of Legends style esports teams out there, and your Dotas and all that kind of stuff. That's what I would love to see us progressing towards. And yeah, if anyone has seen the, I think is it the 100 Thieves facility that they revealed on YouTube, like, that place is absolutely amazing. And that's kind of what the inspiration really was for the Sim Center. So, you know, that to me is kind of like the goal. If we could ever get something that amazing, like, I'd be like, yeah, done. So that's, I think, what we're going to try and work towards.
I mean, I think you already have got a huge level above so many other teams, and performance-wise doing so well, and so many different aspects to Apex, which seems to be working very well. Alex, thank you so much for your time. It's great to speak with you, and thank you for being #1 guest on the new live version of VCO Studio.
Yeah, thank you.
The plan is that we'll be here every Tuesday evening, 7 o'clock local time in Europe, and we will bring you the very biggest and very best guests from the world of sim racing, with myself, Ben Constanduros, once more at the helm of the VCO Esports studio. Until next time, though, enjoy your sim racing. Bye-bye.